Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barra Show. I am your host, Kim Barra, and today we are joined by the amazing Lucas Lee-Tyson. Now, if you're someone who wants to hear about scaling companies, the issues that arise in scaling, you want to grow, and he's someone who's grown to, $4.5 million per month. That's right, per month. He's got some great stories on what to do, what also not to do as you're trying to grow and scale, and what's coming next for him. And of course, if we can ever help you with your marketing, head over to our free community, www.joinmygroup.com.au. But until then, let's jump into the show. Lucas, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kim. I'm excited.
It's great to have you here. Now, I always like to ask this same question to every guest when we kick things off, which is, if I met you at a party and we were chatting and I said, Lucas, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
I make people buy stuff on the internet usually. I've done that for now close to 7-8 years. Close to. That's what I love doing.
Nice. I love it. And I'm a marketing and ads guy myself as well. So I love hearing that. What was your first foray into, whether it be like business or marketing and ads? Like, where did you kind of cut your teeth?
So the very first business I started it when I was in high school. And the only reason I started that business was because I grew up playing video games, and I grew up in a generation of video games where you don't just buy the game, but you buy the game and then you buy the in-game currency. So I got very addicted to a lot of different video games that had in-game currencies that my parents wouldn't buy me. So I wanted a way to make money to buy different in-game currencies in different video games. So the very first ways I tried doing that in high school was I learned basically like Photoshop graphic design through YouTube tutorials. And then I tried offering graphic design services to other YouTube channels for like $5 or something like that. And that was technically like one of the first dollars I ever made online, was like selling crappy YouTube graphics, which I'm not a design person, but I would watch a few tutorials and kind of figure it out. And that kind of sent me down this rabbit hole where I basically, was watching all these tutorials. I ended up starting my own YouTube channel. I would search for things like, how do I get more YouTube subscribers? And then that put me onto all of these like affiliate marketing forums about how to market yourself, how to grow a YouTube channel, how to get views. But that was basically my first introduction to business. The first real introduction I had to like marketing and advertising was when I was a sophomore in college. So I would have been 19 years old, and I was working an internship for this company, the very first job technically that I ever had. I was working as a digital marketing intern because I figured that was the closest to what I'd been doing. But what really blew my mind was the business I was working for. They were pretty large business. I think they're $1 billion company now. They made 3 printers for like engineers and manufacturers and so on. And I was sitting in on one of their meetings with advertising agency that they were using. And I remember asking my boss, the marketing manager, saying like, how much advertising do they do? And he said, they do like $250,000 every single month. And I was like mind blown. I was like, I can't even imagine anyone spending that much money on advertising. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, because I was sitting on the meeting with them. I didn't think they were that impressive. I was like, this is just like kind of some recent college graduate, like giving a presentation basically. And I was like, do they charge us for that? And he's like, yeah, it's usually like 10% of ad spend. And I was like, these people are making $25,000 a month with what I'm basically doing for $2,000 a month as an intern. And that very same day, I went home, I registered on Upwork. That was the first platform I got started on. And that was how I started my digital marketing business, was doing freelance marketing work through Upwork. So that was how I kind of got my start.
Nice. Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of went that way, where if they're going to start an agency, when you sit or start doing marketing for people, when you hear what people do, and as you say, unfortunately, there's some companies when you see, you're like, they're not breaking ground. It's not world class. You're like, really? Yep. This is what they're doing for that amount?
Yep.
It's a bit of a shock to the system. And you're like, yeah, I could definitely do that.
Yeah.
And so what was your transition? Because obviously now, you've built a very successful company and scaled up and whatnot from there. Like, what was then from freelance to business owner, I suppose? What was that kind of leap like?
The only reason it really happened was out of a painful necessity, I guess. So I had been running my agency for about like 2.5 years, and I was about to graduate college, and I was doing really well with my agency. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I don't think anything radically changed, but I was just getting referrals. Clients were growing their business. Like, I was making the most money I'd ever made. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to graduate, never have to get a job. I'll just go straight into doing this. And then in March, COVID hit. So literally within like a week, I basically lost like every single client. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I tried like reaching out to people, but I was mainly working in e-commerce, and beyond just like advertising, marketing fear, there was the fear, I think, of like inventory and like ordering and supply chain. So no one was trying to take on like new work, at least from someone like me. Like maybe there was larger agencies that weren't feeling the effects, but which kind of makes sense. Like the small freelancer is probably the first person to get cut in a time of crisis. So I was basically like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I remember, kind of freaking out, going in Facebook groups, watching YouTube. And this was 2020. So this was around the time, when ClickFunnels was obviously huge. I think Go High Level had like just recently started, but there was a lot of people basically like talking about like, oh, like you need to productize yourself. You need to make a course. You need to digitize, what you know, and, offer that to more people. And I figured that kind of made sense in my head, because I was like, okay, maybe someone doesn't want to pay me month over month, but maybe they would buy a course, or they'd buy some sort of digital product that they buy once, and then that would enable them, to save money and get a similar result. So I basically spent the next like 6 weeks just trying to learn everything I could about how to make a course, how to put a digital product together. And I was making it about Facebook ads. That was really the only service that I'd been doing at the time. And a month before I was about to graduate, which was June, I launched it. And I was just like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And I honestly launched it. I had a tiny email list at the time. It was maybe like 1,000 people. And I launched it, and it wasn't nothing, but it also wasn't like, oh my God, like blow the doors off this thing. I maybe got like 2 sales. Like it was not substantial at all. And maybe out of like naivety, or maybe just out of desperation, I was like, I need to try and advertise this. I need to try and market this. Like I need to try something, because otherwise I have no income, basically. And I maybe had like $10,000 or $15,000 in my savings account. And I was like, I'd rather blow this just trying to make this work than I would like just giving up and going to get a job. So this is kind of like my last chance to make this business work. And in the very first month of advertising it, I basically broke even. Like I spent maybe like $7,000, $8,000, made $7,000, $8,000 back. I was like, that was pretty good. Yeah, solid. But and that was in June of 2020. The very next month in July, I spent maybe like 30 or 40,000, and it made like 200,000. Like it was insane. Oh, wow. And that was 20 times more than I'd ever made in my agency. So I literally remember calling my brother, I think like halfway through the month. Like there had been multiple days back to back where I'd made the equivalent of what I used to make in an entire month. And I remember calling my brother, and like, I think I didn't believe it. Like I didn't believe that I was making this amount of money, that it was real. And I called him like freaking out, and him being a good older brother, he like called me, he calmed me down. He was like, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Like, just don't like change anything. Like clearly this is working. Like, I don't know if I explained it properly to him, but that first digital product was my first like business, I would say, first real success. And that was pretty much the only product that I sold for close to 2 years, from early or mid 2020 to mid 2022. That was really my focus. And that, obviously kind of kickstarted a lot more. But that kind of catastrophic event during COVID where I lost all my clients ended up being honestly one of the greatest things that happened to me. So there was some silver lining there.
And so what do you put that down to? Because obviously even in 2020, 2022, like Facebook ads was a relatively, like, it wasn't like a new idea. It wasn't like a unknown thing. There's plenty of like, Facebook ad educators out there with courses and stuff. Like, what do you think it was that kind of cut through the noise a bit more and made the difference at that time to be able to do numbers like that? Because that's amazing.
I think a huge part of it was timing. So like you said, there were clearly other people out there teaching Facebook ads at a much higher level than me. Like they definitely were more qualified to do it. But I think one element was in my marketing and in the funnels that I put together for that product, I specifically talked about the pandemic and I specifically talked about COVID because that was my reality. I was like, if you're freaking out, if you don't know what to do during COVID, like here's what you should be doing. I think that alone gave me a pretty significant advantage, because even if someone has like 50 times more digital marketing knowledge than me, because mine is specialized and it's like a crisis Facebook advertising course, I think that resonated with people. It was also very cheap. So there has been this big idea of like selling high ticket, to sell a course or a coaching program for like $5,000-$10,000. That first product of mine was $1,500, and there was a payment plan for $600. So it was very affordable. Any business owner, even if you were in dire straits, you could invest into it. And that was kind of my idea, was okay, rather than a business owner paying me $3,000 to $5,000 a month, they could buy this course once for $1,500, and that would be well worth it. I think timing was a big part of it. I also, timing with macroeconomic changes, I think also just timing in the digital marketing industry was key. Around 2020, there had been a surge of gurus who were teaching Facebook ads and teaching drop shipping and SMMA and all this stuff. And they were teaching it with like a get rich quick mindset. The advertising had Lamborghinis and mansions, and it was all about how you were going to become a millionaire overnight. And I've never been that person. Like, I'm not a flashy person by any means. I have a very dry sense of humor. So a lot of my early advertising would kind of have that attitude. It was basically like, you all know that a lot of this stuff is bullshit. So if you want something that actually works, this is real, then you should check this out, basically. I think it was an important lesson that, like I said, there's plenty of marketers on earth that are better at Facebook ads than me. And there's nothing really proprietary about learning Facebook ads. Like, anyone can go on YouTube, and with enough time, you will learn it. The real differentiator and the real reason why anyone buys a product, a course, they hire a specific agency is just because they feel like they resonate with a person. And I think that combination of kind of my anti-guru attitude combined with the fact that I was talking about what was actually happening in the world, whereas a lot of gurus had already made their money, they had made millions, and they were just continuing to run the same ads, the same funnel for years. It was something that grabbed attention very, very quickly. And I think that worked out in my favor.
I love that. Yeah, because I'm sure there's plenty of people that are listening where they're going, like, I've got, maybe a product or course that I'm launching or have launched, and it's, a lot of people doing similar things. But I think, as you said there, like the timing, but also being willing to call out like the elephant in the room and actually talk to people and be like, hey, this is what you're seeing at the moment. Yeah, this is my approach, or this is why I'm different. Rather than just trying to do the same, or I will teach you how to set up a Facebook ad and, track your conversions. Like, it's, as you said, anyone can do so.
Right. Exactly. No, I think there's a lot of competition around being the best. And I think Alex Hormozi has something to do with this, because he basically wrote a book which was basically, you have to just keep being better and better and better than what everyone else is saying, which I do believe there's merit in that. But when you look in a lot of industries and you look at the claims being made, like in weight loss, everyone's saying like, oh, you're going to lose 20 pounds next week, or you're going to get a 6-pack by next month. And in digital marketing, it's like, I'm going to get you 100 clients, or I come to your house and I cook you dinner. It's like, people just don't believe that anymore. It's like almost like, it's like a foreign language. Like, I hear it, I see it, and it just doesn't even register in my mind anymore. So it's not even a matter of being the best. Like, obviously you have to be qualified. You have to have something valuable that you're offering to people, but just being better almost is never going to get you attention. It's almost never going to get you customers. It's almost always better just to be different in some way. So that's what I teach to my clients every single time. And it's, if we're working with a client in our agency right now, the very first thing we always ask is, who are your competitors and what are they saying? What claims are they making? What is the style of advertising that we do? Because it doesn't matter how amazing a marketing campaign we create if it's the same as everyone else. The very first thing we need to do is make sure it's automatically different the very first sentence that someone hears.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. And so what was after that product? You said like 2020 to 2022. What came next?
So that first product, it was my first real business success, but it wasn't really a real business. That product was essentially sold through like webinars that I did myself. I never had salespeople. I never really had like customer support or like client success. Like, I kind of did everything. And then I had like a VA or two, and like one of my friends from high school who would help out with it. It was a great business, but it was very much what people would call like a lifestyle business. And after running it for almost 2 years, I literally just did not have like the energy to work on it anymore. Like I was like, this makes money. I know I can make money doing this, but it doesn't feel fulfilling. Like it just feels kind of meaningless. Like I'm doing the same thing over and over. I'm going through the motions. This isn't really a challenge. And that's really how I've always looked at business is honestly, it's kind of like a video game. It's like I like playing challenging video games. I want to beat the next level and get to the same thing. It would be kind of pointless to replay the same level of a video game over and over. So I had a very conscious switch where I was like, now that I know how to market to some degree, I know how to market myself. Now I want to turn this into a real business. I want to have a team. I basically want to play CEO because I was like, that's a new challenge that I haven't really conquered before. So that the ironic thing was the Facebook ads course, we started off exclusively advertising through Facebook. Very quickly, YouTube ended up taking off, mainly because YouTube is actually one of the only social media platforms that grew during the pandemic, like very significantly. It got a ton of new users. And that was something that I had a lot of business owners asking about was, how do you advertise on YouTube? Because there's honestly that much, not at the time in like 2021, 2022, there wasn't a lot of good training material on it. Not nearly as much as like Facebook ads or Google search. So I had an idea for making a higher ticket program. It started off at $7,000. Eventually, we raised the price to $10,000. That was for business owners like me, like for agency owners, for course creators, coaches, etc., of how to use YouTube ads to get clients, like how I was doing. And that course, I think I first started validating it in maybe like October of 2022. I think it was late that year. And honestly, or no, it would have been October 2021. Because 2022, it was fully running, but for the first 3 or 4 months, it did not catch on. And this is something that I've noticed now is like almost every single product I work on, it's not like you launch it and it just takes off. Like there's almost always like this initial period where you put it out and there's a little bit of crickets and then it slowly starts to catch on, which I have to remind a lot of my clients about. I'm like, I've been doing this for 8 years and even I don't just immediately knock it out of the park. So the first 3 to 4 months, it was very mediocre. I was basically winding down the old course because I wasn't going to make any new marketing for it. And I was slowly trying to wind this new one up. And 2022 was the first full year of advertising it. Probably that year in January, it was doing maybe like 50, 100,000 a month. And by the end of the year, 2022, it was at $1 million a month. So it grew very, very, very quickly. And then the following year, 2023, we peaked in July at $4.4 million a month. And around that time, we had well over 100 employees, probably like 120, 130 contractors, employees. Just it grew very, very fast from having this idea of I want to build a company to now, holy shit, I am in charge of all of these people, all of this. And that was honestly the biggest mistake as well. The first business wound down pretty calm, pretty controlled, I would say. Like I made a very conscious effort. Like I'm not going to sell this anymore. I'm not going to enroll people. And we just wound the advertising down. It was pretty easy just to maintain the customer base. And that was largely because it was a course. It was $1,500. You got a set of videos. You get like an email address. I'd get on, some webinars and teach people, but it was pretty hands off. Like I could work maybe like 2 hours a month on it and it would still theoretically run. This new product was a lot more hands-on. It was a lot more akin to an agency service, honestly, because it was basically like a coaching program, but we did offer like true one-on-one. Like people could get on a Zoom with a coach anytime they wanted. They could text with them. Our team was doing a lot of the process for them. So it was a lot more behind the scenes moving parts than I was accustomed to. And I'd never built a company or a team or anything like that before. Like I was literally just good at marketing. And when we were at our peak, we were enrolling upwards of 400, 450 clients a month. Wow. So it very quickly became a mess. It very quickly became a snowball that I couldn't control. My team couldn't control. So just as quickly as that had grown, it basically collapsed for a lot of different reasons. I think, a core reason was just, obviously like back end operational issues, like the systems that could service 50 clients could not service 500 clients. So people would complain, we'd get bad reviews, and that's something I definitely take accountability with because it was something that we didn't know would happen in hindsight. So it created a lot of issues there. From a marketing perspective, the first course that I did, I would spend maybe like $2,000 a day, most on advertising. in 2023, we were spending upwards of 45,000 a day on ads, which just like the operational back-end complexities of a business, and from a marketing department, the amount of creatives, the amount of testing, the amount of oversight you need inside of that system is a whole other level. Like usually at that level, you have entire departments, and my marketing department was essentially like me and like 2 junior assistants. Like I was still doing all of the marketing myself. So eventually the marketing burnt out, and then we couldn't keep up the pace and fill, a full sales team's calendar. So I'd have to look at the exact days, but in early 2024, it had already shrunk from the peak of 4.4 million a month back down to like 1 million a month. And in the span of like 6 months, it essentially went all the way down to 0. So that was a very important lesson for me. And I don't know if you asked for all this at the question, but I think it's important for the context is,
That's good.
It's an important lesson that just because, I would consider myself pretty good at marketing, just because you can bring in customers and you can bring in clients doesn't mean that you should, or doesn't even mean that you have to. That was a business that, and ended up totaling a little over $50 million. It very easily could have done 100 million, 200 million. If I had just been maybe a little more patient, a little more controlled. Obviously, if I had the knowledge and expertise that, sometimes you kind of just only can learn through painful trial and error. But it was a learning lesson on a lot of things. And obviously it did not, it had its moments. It had an amazing growth trajectory, but like a lot of companies, the faster they grow, sometimes the faster they collapse as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's good that you share that, because as you said, like a lot of people can hear the big numbers and all the excitement and be like, oh yeah, cool. Like, sort of $4 million a month and all this amazing stuff. But it is just like behind that comes the complexity, comes the hard pieces that you have to deal with, because it is real easy to grow for the sake of growing, because you're like, cool, we're pushing. Right. Let's push, guys. Let's see where we can go to. And then, as you say, sometimes it's not always the best case scenario to do so. So it's, and as you said, people will tell you that, but when you're in the midst of it and it's like almost, I suppose, like the euphoria of growing, I know it's been the same for me. You're like, almost not like unstoppable, but you're like, well, like, you can't put a foot wrong at some points. And then it's like, oh, hang on. That was putting the foot wrong by thinking like that. It can be crazy from that side. So no, it's great to have you share that. And so now, like, obviously you've had those successful products, companies up and down. What's in the works for you at the moment?
So right now, basically after that business collapsed, just kind of offhandedly, I started taking on, a few one-on-one consulting clients, people that I would speak to maybe twice a month. I would trade, a few messages here and there, and they'd pay me on a monthly basis. These were people that just kind of reached out to me after seeing a bunch of my ads over and over and over again. And it's pretty organically grown through referrals. And my goal after having that kind of painful learning lesson was I don't want to just grow a business for growing its sake. And I also don't want to have a team just for the sake of having a team. And I think that was something that I dealt with. I'm sure there's plenty of others that do it, but it becomes an ego trip to say like, oh, my team does this. I have this many team members, when it's like, it's at a certain point, it's like kind of a waste of money, and it's kind of just laziness. It's not thinking smart about the resources you already have. So I wanted to be very intentional about that with my consulting and all the people that I've been potentially working with going forward. So pretty much my entire consulting business right now, I run almost exclusively with AI. So I have about like 20, 30 clients that I either advise with, consult with, or I will actually like write all of their copy, all of their advertising, all of their funnels. And the only reason I've been able to do that is just through, different prompts, different AIs that I've put together, that previously in my previous businesses, AI didn't exist. It would have been the equivalent of like 3 or 4 full-time hires. So I've been really interested in the AI space. I think it's just going to continue to get better. And from the experiences I've had, it aligns a lot better with the mindset that I have, which is just being smarter with the resources you currently have. And I don't think that means like replace everyone on your team with AI, but it's how can I extend myself, or it's how can I extend my team using these different AI tools. So that's something I've been exploring for a little bit now. I've actually basically taken the AI that I use internally. I'm having a few of my consulting clients like beta testing that, and potentially later this year, that will be something I'll launch. Other than that, I really honestly just enjoyed doing the consulting, because for the past 4 years, I've only been in the business of marketing myself, which is kind of funny because before that, I was in the agency business where I'm only marketing other people. So it honestly is kind of nice to get back to that, to get a lot of different perspectives of products and industries and businesses, and figuring out what is the best way to position this, what is the best way to market this. And I've had a lot of really great learning lessons from doing that as well. So that's really been my main focus, is really just helping my clients get amazing results, and honestly kind of just being in a very early exploratory phase with AI, because I know if it existed when I had started my business in 2020, I would be in a fully different position. So now knowing this, I would want to build a business around that, or at least help other business owners implement it as well.
100%. Yeah, I think that's definitely where things are shifting towards. And as you say, it's not necessarily that it's going to replace every man and his dog, but I think it's like if people can use it to free up their time and capacity to think and
Right.
use their brain space for more creativity, I think it's hugely powerful. And it's funny you said there, like, obviously, you spend so much time marketing yourself. Like I speak to a lot of people and I'm like, what you did there, like, and I still do for ourselves sometimes, is like marketing is hard, right? It's like in comparison to everyone else, I'm like, when I look at other people's stuff, I'm like, you guys have the benefit. It's so much easier for you guys, like, to cut through the noise, like the level of competition, but awareness and sophistication of people in the marketing spaces. Like it's hard. Someone came to me and they were like, they do dental for equestrian, for like horses and stuff like that. And it was like, you look at a simple campaign for them and they're like, hits it out of the park. And I'm like, this is just, you're like, far out. Like, this is great. I love it. I love that feeling as well.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah. Now, Lucas, as we get towards the end of our time here together, I'd love to ask, is there any questions that I haven't asked you that I should have?
That's a good question. Knowing what I know now, I guess the question would be, what would be something you want every entrepreneur to know, or every marketer to know? And my answer would be, you should have a reason to growing your business beyond money. Because honestly, if you just want to make more money, you probably don't need to grow the business. You probably just need to figure out how do you keep more of what you're already making. That for basically from like 1.5 million a month to like 4.4 million a month, I made the same amount of money, if not less. So we literally almost tripled the business for nothing for me. And it was 100%. It had a great impact. It helped people, give people skills and, give them an incredible opportunity. But I was working really, really hard. I thought I was going to be a lot richer, if I'm being honest. So, and I think that's a good learning lesson, because I was largely scaling that business out of ego and out of just money. And I don't think those are good reasons to solely grow a business. You should grow a business because you really deeply believe in the product that you have. You truly believe the world would be better if it was in the hands of more people. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do something for money. Just know that there's probably an easier way of doing that than trying to just add more customers or add more top line revenue. I've seen that now with the private consulting that I do. And I think it's easier for me to see that now, having gone through it and looking at many business owners who are like me, because I see so many of them. It's almost like the default reaction of every business owner is like, okay, how do we make more money than the last month? But it's like, there's so many other factors. It's like, well, how many hours did you work last month? How much did you actually take home, put it to your personal bank account? How much did your team members make? Like, there's so many other factors that should be prioritized than just top line revenue, because no one cares about that. Your employees don't care about that, really. Your clients definitely don't care about that. And you probably don't care about that if it doesn't lead to you making more money. So that's a huge internalized lesson that I've had in the last 2 years, that I don't think there's anything wrong with making money. I would love to make a ton of money. And sometimes you just need to be smarter about it in business than just only focusing on the top line revenue.
I love that. Yeah. Great lesson for everyone to hear there. And Lucas, for anyone that's listening along, they're like, cool, I want to see, what you're up to, how this new SaaS is going to go, all that sort of stuff. Where's the best place for them to connect with you online and follow along?
Yeah, probably to connect, follow along would probably be Instagram, where it's just my name, all one word, no hyphen. I don't post there that much, but when I do have like updates, I'll usually, make a story, and that's where I've been kind of sharing the development of my SaaS, and then obviously of some of the private consulting that I do. If someone is interested in the software, the website we have right now is called Printer.ai. So there's a small waiting list, I think, there. As of right now, I don't anticipate us being able to launch it for at least, the next few months. And then for my private consulting, that company is called License to Print. So licensetoprint.com. And, if someone is interested, if they are kind of in the beginning stages of advertising or trying to scale up their advertising, there's a free gift at licensetoprint.com/gift. That basically is like a resource pack of some of our best performing ads, our best performing sales funnels, and some training that basically goes over how to implement it in a business. So hopefully that could be helpful as well.
Amazing. We'll make sure that's all linked up in the show notes for everyone as well. So Lucas, again, thank you so much for joining us today. And guys, if you enjoyed hearing Lucas' story and maybe someone that needs to hear it and learn some of these lessons as well, please make sure that you share this episode with them. And Lucas, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kim.
Thank you.